Hello and aloha, my dear friend, the Baha'is all over the world. Time is pretty late, 22nd of October today. Right now it's 12:46, just 15 minutes to 1 o'clock. I was going to put off not to talk about it. Just don't know what tomorrow is. Last night, last time when I spoke about the covenant breakers, I promised that I'm going to talk a little bit about these three examples of the covenant breakers. The example one is really a covenant breaker by seduction. These guys purposely, willingly, premeditatingly, they are coming into the faith because they're useless and they're trying to make some kind of a name and money and whatever. The other types are a bit more innocent. They're confused. They have a confused philosophy. Big example of it is our time is Mr. Mason Remy. There's also a third type that people, they call them covenant breaker, or sometimes these guys, they lose their administrative right. It's simply because they came across the covenant brokers. And these covenant brokers that they stand between today universal laws of justice and the believers, they don't simply like these people. Either they're jealous about them or whatever. So as soon as you say something to a covenant broker, which is likely an assistant to the board member, a board member, or a counselor, if you go against them, they think you're going against God because they think they are God or they're representing God. And I'm one of those examples. Of course, I'm not angry with them, and I'm not frustrated by what they've done to me. I work for Baha'u'llah, and that's what he wants, so I will do. It's up to people. If they like it, like it. If they don't, they don't. I get paid for what I say and what I do from Baha'u'llah, not from people. But anyways, tonight I'm going to be talking about one guy named is Azal. We know him as Azal. I like to call him tonight Beast, because in the Bible there are many verses, as you know, that prophesies the coming of Bab and Baha'u'llah. You can refer to the book Thief in the Night. You can refer to the Some Answered Questions. You can refer to the internet, beautiful file is there, it's called Prophecies is Fulfilled. You'll find it for yourself. But Azal also, this fellow known as Azal, is also prophesied something in the Bible. And the Bible says that and the beast was sitting on the chest of God. Right in the Bible it says, this is him. So the Bible calls him beast, because he bothered Baha'u'llah very much. So this beast, or Abdul Baha calls him Yahya Yamuti. His name was Yahya Yamuti. Yamuti or beast by the standard of the Bible. He was a younger brother of Baha'u'llah, 13 years younger actually, and he was a stepbrother, father of Baha'u'llah, few wives by the Muslim traditions, and some wife he had that this boy was from him. Baha'u'llah liked him, and he says that in his writing, I always took care of him. I even taught him how to read and write. And well, as soon as the event of the Bab happens and the message of the Bab comes, Baha'u'llah at that time was 27 years old when this happens. Azal would have been 13 years younger, makes him about 14 years old. So he wouldn't know much. But about 6-7 years after, when Bab gets martyred in Iran, Azal got so afraid, naturally, he was a young boy, didn't know what belief is, that he just get out of his place, because Baha'u'llah was known Baha'i and he was afraid to be associated with the Baha'i faith and followers of Bab. He escapes, calls him, put the dress of dervish and then go find job at different places. Of course, the government at that time, they knew Baha'u'llah is the chief of the Baha'is. He was the biggest one after the Bab, so they immediately come after him. Even the enemies recognized Baha'u'llah was the biggest of all the Baha'is at that time, because there was an attempt of murder happened on the king by some misguided Baha'is, and Baha'u'llah was taken as to be responsible. And Baha'u'llah's defense was that, you know, that I'm coming from families of the noble families of the lords, and I'm educated, I know royalty, I know better the difference between a pallet and a bullet, because they use pallet to shoot the king, and Baha'u'llah said, you should know that. I know the difference between bullet and pallet. I would have not ordered this clearly. If it was me, I would have asked him to put bullet. Somehow they believed him, but they were afraid of him. They killed the Bab, and they were afraid if they killed Baha'u'llah, then probably for sure they're going to get terror. So they decided to let Baha'u'llah to go out of Iran to exile, and this way the trouble goes out of Iran to other countries, to Ottoman Empire, those days to Iraq. As Baha'u'llah those days, they taken into custody in exile, it passes through western part of Iran. This Azal those days was a still young fellow, was in Hamadan, I think, and he happened to see the Baha'u'llah going with his entourage to Baghdad for exile, and he wants to go alongside of Baha'u'llah. But he was always keeping himself aloof. Even in Baghdad, when they got there, he had a separate house because he could not directly associate with Baha'u'llah, knew what this means, But he caused a lot of trouble, a lot of problem. Believe it or not, he was thinking that, based on something that I'm going to tell you now right now, that he was in charge of the religion after the Bab. He thought, based on that, what Bab wrote to him, that he's the chief of the Baha'is. That's what Shoghi Effendi says. Bab called Azal the chief of the Baha'is. Based on that, he was always looking for some ways that if he could say that who he is, because he was afraid of saying it even, that he might get something out of it, A lot of people probably would pay money or donations or respect. He could get it, but he was afraid to call himself Baha'i. In Iraq, they were after Baha'is, and they would beat the hell out of them if they get them. And Azal was afraid of that. So he couldn't associate him with Baha'u'llah. But he was keep mentioning these things. Baha'u'llah said, okay, you think you can handle this yourself? Baha'u'llah left. Didn't even say to anyone. He took some guy, I think, Abul Qasim from Hamadan with him, and he went north of Iraq among the Kurdish people for 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years he was there. No one knew. They found about him later. So Baha'u'llah said, if you could do it, if you want to take my burden on your shoulder, go ahead. But of course, Azal is so afraid of everything, this beast. He cannot even say what his name is. They would change his name. Never mind to say what his religion is. The issue gets complicated. The government of Ottoman Empire takes Baha'u'llah all the way to Istanbul in Turkey of those days, which would be Ottoman Empire. And from there even it was sent further to Adrianople, a city had been in it, adjacent to Hungary now. There again Azal shows up. And some other fellow by the name Muhammad Ali Isfahani comes from Isfahan, and it starts to intrigue this Azal that, what's happening, man? You are the successors of the Bab. All these donations and everything goes to your brother. It's yours. Why can't you claim it? I'm with you, don't be afraid. So finally, Azal found one believer, one supporter, and there was another guy, I guess, also. They tried to conspire against Baha'u'llah, and they actually put poison in his tea. That Baha'u'llah, like a Parkinson's disease, all his life, his hand was shaking, he couldn't write anymore. A doctor came and said that this is hemlock, it will kill Baha'u'llah. But by the miracle of God, he was not killed, but his hand was shaking. Then I think he threw poison in the well. Everybody else got sick. This guy was a seriously sick fellow. And even they arranged that, I don't know how to say that in English, but the word is mubahele. This is a custom, it happened in Islam too, that those who repudiated with Muhammad, some of the Jews at the time, they asked that both Muhammad and them, they go to a place and they both ask God, whoever is bad, to be killed. They curse each other, process of cursing each other. If you're true, so it will happen. They asked Baha'u'llah with this kind of things, and Baha'u'llah actually appeared. I said, okay. He came to the mosque of Sultan Salim. I've been in that mosque too. But no wonder, because Azal never showed himself up. He was afraid. He didn't show himself up. He didn't. His knowledge is so awkward. He just doesn't know anything, this man. And so all the believers, they said that if this is the successors of Bab, Azal, as he says he is because his letters to him, then many of them, they left. The followers of Bab, they left. They said that this is just completely unacceptable. Anyways, many moons, many eons passed. Right now we're in Canada. Why am I talking about this? Is that on the internet, there are certain peoples, they're still bringing the name of this fellow. One of them, I personally know, he's a psychotic fellow, but he's probably innocent. If he's sick, you know, I'm not going to say anything about him. But again, because he had issues with the Baha'is, probably, he went grudging against the Baha'is and bringing a site to put the writing of Azal and Bab and whatnot, calling themselves Baha'i. My Lord, my God, if you look at that site and the books, there are so many mistakes in those, over and additional to what Azal says. For example, the book is contributed to Azal, but it's all the writing of the Bab. Even it says it's the writing of the Bab right within the book, but they put him in the name of Azal. And then previous book of Azal, for example, the book of Azha, there's tablets of Dayan from the Bab. It says it's revealed by Bab, but Azal says that he wrote it himself. And yet in other places, on his own handwriting, you know, contradict himself. Because he didn't know how to write and didn't know what to say, a lot of the writing of the Bab, he tried to say he did it, he revealed it. And then his own writing, he says Bab revealed it, to convolute the situation so people don't understand between him and the Bab. Many ridiculous things he has said. And one of his writing that he's trying to attribute it to the Bab, but it's not the writing of the Bab. He's trying to praise God, and they try to rhyme the words. So he says to God, O mazhara khofashan, which means O manifestation of bat, like the bird's bat. I don't know where did he get this kind of idea. He was totally sick, I say. He had mental problem, I believe. And imagine what other things. So this tablet, however, has been translated by some other Baha'is that they left Baha'i faith on whatever account they had. and Dr. Cole, which I respect this individual very much, but he has lost his administrative right too. He's in Michigan. On his site, Baha'i actually has written these tablets of the Will and Testament of the Bab about the Azal. And what a tablet it is, you know, if somebody reads it, especially in the translation. I'm going to bring it up anyways. In that tablet, which the Baha'is do not repudiate that, they say that it might be from the Bab. But the problem with the writing of the Bab is so bad that it's very, very difficult to distinguish what is going on with the writing of the Bab. And Bab himself did not help about this issue at all, because purposely, as a strategy of God, Bab says in the beginning of the book that this book will have 19 chapters of 19 units, together 361 for the days for a year. But saying this, yet the book is incomplete for the 11th chapter and something. And the Arabic Bayan is the same thing. There's an Arabic book called Five Mode. Again, 7 and 8 chapters are there. The rest of them of 19s are not there. But it's just a few of them. He purposely says this is the book where it has to be, but yet he's not finishing it. If you say he was killed and didn't have time, why did he do with many books? He definitely had time to finish them. He did not want to. I'm the elder of God. I have to interpret this for you. The reason behind this is that Bab purposely did that so that his own followers do not cling to any excuse to follow him and not follow Baha'u'llah, which would have come right after him. So if you want to be a Babi, it's impossible to be a Babi, because the book of God revealed to Bab is incomplete. He says it's about to be 19 chapters, but it's not. It's 11. And this is not about just one book. I know of the Arabic Bayan, I know of the Persian Bayan, I know of the Five Mode, I know of some other books. There's few of them. He purposely would not complete it. So that there is no other way except that the Babis would have to go and find out who is there. Baha'u'llah, of course, is there. And he would be in the way. It's a strategy, okay? These are part of the things. For example, in Quran says the women are half of the men. The Bible doesn't say that. But purposely Muhammad said they have the right, half the right of men. Why? Because when in 1260 when Bab comes, nobody can follow Islam. God has purposely made this so Islam will become forgotten, obsolete. Why? Because the new religion of God is there, so they're not using this as an excuse and follow Islam. It's impossible to follow Islam. Impossible unless you break the rules. And then that would be partial Islam. Same way Bab has done that. The other time, the strategy Bab uses is that he puts some obvious, absolutely obvious, ridiculous statement. He does. Because he just wants the believers have no choice but to ask Baha'u'llah what it means. Everyone knows David, prophet of God, came after Moses. It's very clear, the Psalms of David. But Bab refers David who came before Moses. If you think Bab did not have knowledge to say this, you have to think twice, because Bab has revealed 40 times more than Quran. His knowledge is so encompassing that is beyond any ordinary human being to understand. Where did he get this memory power to quote so many of the saints and imams all the time? Then why would he say this? It's just because you find out, okay, there's a mistake. What do? You have to refer to Baha'u'llah. You see? It's a strategy that Bab uses. And one of his strategy, according to Shogi Effendi, was to distract enemies. They were after Baha'u'llah. Bab does not bring the name of Baha'u'llah very often. because the enemies were after Baha'u'llah. Immediately, if they knew he's going to be followed by Baha'u'llah, kill Baha'u'llah right away. So, just to protect Baha'u'llah, he puts Azal, the brother of Baha'u'llah. He says, okay, you are the chief of the Baha'is. But the very word that he calls him, you are the chief of the Baha'is, and you have to take care of the affairs of the Baha'is, immediately this title will restrict him to say anything more than what he was told that he is. When it comes to Baha'u'llah, Bab says, I'm a drop of his oceans. He says, oh master of the universe, I have no wish but to die in your pathway. That's how he speaks of Baha'u'llah. So, but the Azal says you're the chief of the Baha'is. That means you're not even equal to me, you're lower than me. Okay? Therefore, Azal, based on accepting the fact that this tablet is in his name and for him, the order is that to him that you are the chief of the Baha'is, that you are restricted to this order, you cannot claim anything better than that. But furthermore, Bab, when he talks about Baha'u'llah, as always he calls him him whom God shall manifest. He always talks in codes. This is the translation, the page 4 of the translation in the position of Mr. Cole. I'm going to read it. You can look at this site and see it for yourself. Okay, what it says here, this is talking to him. We order you, Bab says to Azal, we order you to obey him whom God shall make manifest. He will verily appear amongst these people with a sublime reign and the final resurrections. All the books of the past were already saying that there are two manifestations would have to come. Muslim, they all knew, is Mehdi, the guide, the divine guide, Mehdi. And then he dies. After that, Imam Hussein will come. Shiites say Hussein, and Sunnis, they say Jesus will come. But this Jesus or Hussein will come and bury the body of the Bab, the body of this Mehdi. So they all knew there are two to have to come. All the religions. So Bab did not find any use to talk about Baha'u'llah's coming or this or that, because everyone knew in Islam immediately after him another one had to come. But to Azal says that particularly, okay? But then tell him something that's really strange for anyone who thinks this document is an indicative that Azal is the successors of the Bab, has to look at this document which Azal himself and those who followed him, which there are not even 50 people in the world right now, that ever they say, but I'm just talking about matter of, clarifications. It's very important. Again, in the bottom of this page 4 that I made, take a look at the last two lines at the bottom again, please. And I'm going to read it. It says, do not alter anything, so that the people do not descend in the religion of God. Where have you ever heard a prophet of God, such as Jesus or Moses or Muhammad, to tell to his successors, don't alter and forge my words, the word of God? It's very, very negative. Bab, in fact, has said to nobody that, hey, you don't alter my words, don't